folks, welcome back to another edition of the PlayAction Pod. I'm your host, Christian McCullum. We have a special guest today, Danijela Covic, the co-founder and CSO of Quarter4.io. Danijela, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so PlayAction Pools has teamed up with Quarter4 for a bracket, really pretty much Quarter4 powering our bracket challenges this year. Really sweet, slick software. But that's not really what Quarter4 is about. Danijela, tell us, first of all, what was the genesis of Quarter4? How did it come about?
Well, Quarter4, how did it come about? We always get this question, and it was one of those things. My partner and I, Kelly Brooks, we were sitting there wanting to really work on a product. We come both from a tech space and in a financial space, and we're like, okay, we want to create a product. So we were sitting there talking our love of sports, and we're like, can we do anything with all these amazing developers we have at our disposal? Can we make a product that's different, that's focusing on athletic abilities and outputs, and then giving you genuine predictive data? Which is where the starting of Quarter4 came in. We thought, okay, let's do some research. We looked at some of the best technologies out there and realized AI and machine learning was the next thing that everybody wanted to go after. And we noticed that in every other industry outside of the sports and betting industry, they were starting to put in AI and machine learning in some sort of aspect of it. So we teamed up with our team, gave them the statistics and said, what can you tell us about this? What can we do with this? They built this beautiful engineered deep learning neural network that we started with basketball, actually, NBA more specifically. We input all the data and realized the beautiful content that we're creating. And then from there, we grew into multiple leagues. The next one was college basketball for us, which I always say is our sweet spot. We love a college player before the journey goes on to the professional leagues, and just the kind of output that we can give them. So that's kind of the starting of Quarter4, that it was just one of those, hey, what can we do here? We put it together, and we ended up creating a beautiful company that is now focusing on sports and betting, which betting was also just a timely thing. It was just happening in the U.S., and we were told, hey, this is perfect for a betting market. Why don't you input this in? So here we are today, 3 years later, fully focusing on betting and sports.
All right. And you guys provide widgets, and PlayAction is utilizing those to produce content, like you said. What are users going to get from those widgets and that kind of predictive data, like you said?
Yeah. So we are obviously straight B2B, but we do work with all of our clients to kind of help them with their B2C attraction. We give access to widgets that essentially allow you to extract anything from our infrastructure that gives you predictive data on event space, so games, head-to-heads, percentages, who we think is going to win this game, what's the predicted spread, what's the over-under. But then more importantly, again, where we love to focus is on the actual human portion, which is the athlete. So we focus on the widgets to actually extract the player props. We let you know what the player is going to do this next upcoming game and the game after that, and how he or she is doing up against their season averages and what's the percentage differential. We also love to flag your athletes that we think are going to have a breakout night, whether they've never had a breakout night, so they're your sleepers, or they're continuing to have breakout nights, so they're your star players, and we expect them to continue performing. So those are just some of the components that our widgets give you from an athlete and game standpoint, but we also allow for seeding throughout the season, let you know where we think your team is going to land. And we have widgets that extract live in-game probabilities. So, a tip-off in basketball, who we think is going to get the ball, what's the likelihood of, the next two-point attempt to actually be converted. So anything you could imagine that makes sense of an actionable item. We also give a widget to display that to your end users of what we think is going to happen.
Yeah, so like I said, with the PlayAction post, we created some content based on your predictions for March Madness. So anyone doing a Build Your Bankroll contest will see a little link underneath each game that says Quarter4, and then a kind of brief summary of what the predictive model says, and a link right to it, giving you more information. So I mean, March Madness, I looked at some of the things, and the the system has got some pretty nice upsets. It's predicting Davidson
Yep.
to beat Michigan State. It
Mhm.
really, really likes North Carolina over Marquette. That's not necessarily an upset, but it's really strong on the Tar Heels, and really strong on
Yep.
Virginia Tech over Texas as well. So
Yep.
some info there for the users.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what it is? So our focus here is we're strictly statistical. We extract the data and there is no bias. It's looking to see who is trending, which team is doing really well. And I mean, as much as we're calling Davidson an upset, they're having their best season since Curry was on the team, right?
Mhm.
So they're coming in here on fire. And from what I remember, even in the previous years, when you're talking about a number 7 and number 10 face off, it's one of the hardest games to call. Forget about 8 and 9. I feel like 7 and 10 is where it's at. It always seems to be one way or the other. So quarter four is feeling really good about Davidson in this face off. I mean, 66%, but that's still pretty good for an upset, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, and what I did is I went through it, and if you're filling out our bracket, you'll also be able to see quarter four's predictions as well. If you just hover over the quarter four icon there on the bracket, it'll give you the percentages for each matchup going through, even predictive ones that might not occur. So I went through and I loved it. It's not just, even though it's all number based, it doesn't just fall in love with the top, higher ranked seeds. I had a really interesting Final Four. One thing that it did was it doesn't like the 1 seeds a lot to get out of round 2. I think only
Yeah.
one made it.
Yeah, I mean, they do well. There's, I mean, a number of them, but I feel like it's really tight.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that quarter four comes in, and I think that also kind of comes in with the one seeds, depending on what their momentum is like coming into the beginning of the tournament. It's paying attention to who it's going after, right? I mean, look at even it's one of the I feel like it's also a pretty big upset to me. I look at it as Virginia Tech, right? We're calling it in favor of Virginia Tech. But if you look at it, and I mean, quarter four is looking at it from a statistical standpoint, going, well, Texas hasn't made it past the first round since 2014. It's coming in with a lesser record than Virginia Tech is, and they're coming in off of a pretty fiery ramp up to the actual tournament. So it's looking at those type of trends, and it's looking at previous years, and then it's assessing every single player on court that's playing and who's playing against each other and where their momentum lies and which players are going to have some highlights. So that's why I feel like it's coming off of that way. But I do agree with you, like the Baylor. I mean, we're only giving them what 54.5% chance
Yep.
to actually beat Norfolk.
Yep.
Like it's tight. But again, it's feeling that momentum from Norfolk, and it's going like, you know what, it's going to be a tight game, and that's what the call is. We're still expecting them to win, but we're expecting it to be a lot tighter than people are expecting.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is, with our Build Your Bankroll contest, it's not just picking the bracket, it's going against the spread. So, Baylor's really tight, looks a lot closer than the 20-plus points they're giving. Kentucky game could be really, really tight. Longwood could give Tennessee a run, straight up. But even if you don't want to pick that upset, Longwood to cover. And one favorite it really likes is Murray State. I saw that Murray State was favored by like 1 by the odds makers, but quarter four's line is like 8.5. So if you're looking for a favorite to put some money on, go ahead and do that. Murray State. Like I said, I put a quarter four bracket into our Irish Sports Daily bracket contest, and I'm eager to see how it does. And as you're going through, you're like, "Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting." But as you work your way through the bracket, you kind of start to feel it. And if you see it likes some of the same trendy teams that some of the experts that are watching. So the Final Four I came up with, even though it had Baylor barely getting by in round 1, Baylor made it to the Final Four. Tennessee made it to the Final Four, a team that I know a lot of people are pretty high on. Iowa in the Final Four, in Alabama. So, like I said, I put that in our Irish Sports Daily Bracket Challenge, and it's going to compete against all of our Irish Sports Daily subscribers and see how it does.
I got to say this. I was not planning on those were my top 4 too. I kid you not. That's why I just laughed. I was like, how did that? Okay, so that's kind of where I went to, because I do follow. So we're all humans, right? You can take, obviously, he's a statistical basis, but we also have a little bit of a bias. So I was also kind of picking, and that's where I got to. So it's quite interesting that's the 4 you got.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, we really appreciate it. It's the start of a great partnership, I believe, between PlayAction and Quarter4.
Yes.
We'll be providing all those widgets and all that information throughout the tournament on our platform and, moving forward as well. So I really, really appreciate it, Danijela. Congrats, and I'm really looking forward to working with you guys.
Same here. Looking forward to this, Christian, and of course, I think this is going to be a beautiful partnership. And looking forward to the playoffs. I can't wait to check in and say, "Aha, I told you so." Look how close that was. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Thank you.